the seat of the Grand Pontiff to legitimize or delegitimize political houses and their feuds. This throne of Christendom and its accompanying political leverage passed from faction to faction with all of the predictability of a knife fight. Even the papacy itself had changed from a purely spiritual position that represented the unified body of Christendom into a deadly game of betrayal and ambition. Powerful Roman families, such as the Dukes of Spoleto in our case, lobbied for influence with other rival houses in the city and across Europe. These influential parties' machinations had turned the Pope's seat into an extension of their aristocratic dominance. Even the election process became less about piety or holiness, as it had previously been, and became more about placing a lackey on the throne, which during this time was often bought. The idea was for this lackey to become useful in securing power, extracting loyalty, and defending secular interest with the full weight of divine sanction. Maybe that's part of the reason why, eventually, the body of electors in charge of selecting the next pope would become more precisely defined, thus forming the College of Cardinals, to prevent the pope, a position of holiness, from becoming a political chess piece. However, at the point in time we're talking about, before the college was formed, popes and bishops were chosen by the consensus of both the clergy, which is the church leadership, and the diocese, or in other words, the baptized members of the church. The issue with the latter group is how easily they could be influenced by powerful families, including, as mentioned earlier, the Dukes of Spoleto. The clergy had the divine authority to help make these elections, and the belief was that they were not corruptible like everyday church members. The divine sanction, which drove the papacy's power, was at the center of the maelstrom taking place in the European peninsula at the time. Holy Roman emperors like Charlemagne, Otto the Great, and Lambert of Spoleto clung to imperial titles that offered little actual control over the Italian mainland. It was therefore extremely important to those vying for the throne that holy direction stabilize a church and its people, a people which had become fractured by overlapping claims to authority. Resulting from this ambiguity, a power vacuum was created in which the Pope became both pawn and player. Ambitious candidates jockeying for the papacy realized they needed additional strength from secular leaders and thus aligned themselves with those they felt would give them the best shot. Or the way companies work today with every politician ever. And this was the case for prospective emperors as well. They would manipulate popes in order to solidify political power and expand their dominion. It was during this political storm that Pope Formosus came into power. Before his ascension to the office of being a pope, not his ascension to heaven, I think. Before his ascension, his predecessors had suffered relatively short terms and pretty gruesome deaths. Pope John VIII was assassinated in 882 by his own clerics after a decade-long papacy. His successor, Pope Marinus I, only served 2 years before his death. Marinus' successor, Pope Adrian III, served 1 year before dying under strange circumstances that led many to believe he was also assassinated. And the fates of subsequent popes around this time included Stephen VI, who was strangled, Leo V, allegedly strangled, John X, allegedly smothered with a pillow, John XII, allegedly murdered by the angry husband of the woman with whom he was in bed with. Really, it wouldn't be until the mid-11th century, under reform started by Pope Leo IX and others, that the church would regain a measure of its moral and political authority. But between 872 and 965, a span of less than a century, over 20 popes would rise and fall, some with reigns lasting only days. Historians called this period Saeculum Obscurum, or the Dark Ages of the papacy. It was a time when Rome's spiritual head was often selected more by force of arms rather than faithful adherence to the church's doctrine. The once structured system of leadership and authority in the Catholic Church was now a series of steps that often resulted in execution, exile, or political murder. Once the teacher of the nation, Rome had become a circus of horror and mockery. And while many succumbed to the pitfalls of the chaos, 2 men used it as a ladder to climb to power. And they are Pope Formosus and Stephen VI. So let's get some background on the people we're going to be talking about. Formosus, born around 816 in Rome, rose through the church's ranks to become the cardinal bishop of the city of Porto in 864. And to note, that is Porto, a Roman suburb, not the city in Portugal. And his path to become pope was full of political obstacles. In the 870s, Formosus was excommunicated by Pope John VIII, who
Night.
accused him of deserting his diocese without papal permission and conspiring against the Pope. In other words, the Pope accused him of leaving his followers and scheming. While that might not sound like a big deal now, these were serious allegations at the time, as it meant that Formosus abandoned his post as Bishop of Porto, essentially leaving the clergy and church members without their shepherd. This was forbidden by canon law unless the Pope himself gave permission. From the church's perspective, Formosus left Porto without papal authority in the secular sense, and without a representative of God to protect their souls in the spiritual sense. Pope John VIII also accused Formosus of seeking another see, a term for a territory or jurisdiction, as the Archbishop of Bulgaria. According to canon law, bishops and deacons were not allowed to wander into neighboring cities to officiate. This was intended to prevent bishops from building up their own fiefdoms. Or in other words, you don't want bishops or church leaders going around gathering up their own following without the church's permission. Because at this time, people tended to get into wars over that kind of thing. This practice, known as pluralism, was a form of corruption rampant during the medieval period, due in part to the tremendous amount of wealth and power that came with lands belonging to the Christian church. Moreover, a bishop that held multiple sees also resulted in non-residency, since one person could not be in several places at a time. This meant that spiritual duties were either neglected or left to underpaid and poorly trained substitutes, which of course negatively impacted the pastoral care provided to the faithful. This is what John VIII had accused Formosus of doing. Despite being a successful missionary renowned for spreading Catholicism throughout Bulgaria, Formosus' reputation was impacted by these accusations, as you can imagine, as well as his refusal to return to Rome when summoned by Pope John VIII. Not showing up to your own accusation on the Pope's demand is certainly a guilty look, but also relatable. I mean, this guy's boss really had it out for him. In regards to the conspiracy charge, Pope John VIII believed that Formosus had aligned himself with hostile nobles and foreign claimants, and was using his influence to undermine papal policy to his own benefit. Papal policy. That's a good word. 2 words. Yeah. Scholars such as Johann Peter Kirsch believe that Pope John VIII viewed Formosus as a potential rival, as Formosus was considered a strong candidate for the papacy as early as 872, the first year of Pope John VIII's tenure. So, he had Formosus excommunicated. But as mentioned, that's just a theory, a game theory, and it seems that John's paranoia wasn't entirely unjustified. As I mentioned earlier, John VIII was the first pope to be murdered by his own people. One day, someone poisoned him. But since the poison was apparently taking too long to take effect, the culprit lost patience and bashed John VIII's head in with a hammer. Pope Marinus I succeeded John and reinstated Formosus as Bishop of Porto. Perhaps realizing what an opportunity this second chance was, Formosus served diligently for several years, after which he was elected pope. This was a remarkable turnaround, from exile to the top of the church's pecking order. Maybe his reputation wasn't as besmirched as people thought, or perhaps this was a reflection of the changing political and religious dynamics in Rome and across the Christian world. When Formosus took the papacy in October of 891, he was faced with a dilemma. He was extremely distrustful of the current reigning emperor, Guy III of Spoleto, and his aggressive expansion policies. Formosus was worried about the fate of Rome, and to make matters worse, Formosus was forced to crown Guy's own son, Lambert, as co-emperor in April of 892. Formosus understood that if he allowed Guy and Lambert of Spoleto to reign, they would exert their political strength onto the Papal States and on Formosus himself. To counter this, Formosus immediately began looking for support against the family, and turned his efforts towards Arnulf of Carinthia, who was at the time ruling over East Francia, also known as the Kingdom of Germany. Formosus sent over an embassy requesting Arnulf to come and liberate Italy, promising that Arnulf would be crowned emperor in Rome. It might be surprising to learn, but not only were popes at this time blessing invasions, they were actively summoning them if they felt their position in Rome was compromised. For example, in the mid-700s, Pope Stephen II crossed the Alps and summoned Frankish military campaigns into Italy against the Lombards, an alliance that would give birth to the Papal States. Years later, Pope Hadrian I called on Charlemagne multiple times to intervene in Italy, campaigns which were framed as defending the papal rights. Even Formosus's predecessor, Pope John VIII, called on Charles the Bald to cross the Alps in 875 to claim the imperial crown against locals. Which, yes, a lot of important history talk and whatnot, but most importantly, Charles the Bald, funny name. It took Arnulf a few invasions of Italy to assert his claim to the imperial title, which he finally did so in 896. Arnulf did not go personally in the first invasion, but he did send his sons Ventibold, accompanied by a Bavarian army. Their army defeated In 1921, in Logan County, West Virginia, the largest labor uprising in American history would take place. 10,000 coal miners would go to war against the local sheriff's department, coal companies, and eventually the United States military, complete with spies, assassinations, and even aerial bombings. The Battle of Blair Mountain is the largest armed rebellion in the nation's history, besides the Civil War. And I guess also the War for Independence, but it's the largest that doesn't have war in the title. But the Battle of Blair Mountain wasn't just about the battle. It was about years of poor working conditions and abuses brought on by coal companies. So today, I want to talk about how something that began as a union protest resulted in open gunfights, and talk a lot about some of the weird local politics and history that allowed this to happen in the first place. Before we begin, I want to say the Brainwashed collection is only available for like another week and then it's gone forever. So if you want to get in on some of this merch, like the Panopticon shirt and shorts and the Keep Watching fanny pack, then head to the link in the description at wendigoon.shop, and if you decide to support in that way, it means the world, and thank you. And remember, only like a week left, so get it while you can. And if today's topic sounds interesting to you, then stick around after the ad as we talk about a moment in American history that's hard to even imagine. I mean, I guess there's a lot of like fictional stuff about revolutions and uprisings and things like that, but hard to imagine in real life, even though I guess fictional stories are just imagining real life. You get what I'm saying. As someone who's chronically online, I know that eating healthy isn't always easy, or fun. Between traveling, family, and work, it can be tempting to take the option that's cheap and quick.
Watch the pot get spilled. You can kill or you can be killed. It doesn't really matter what I feel. I would rather fake than make the pain real. Oh, take that smirk, wipe it off your face. So you would do the same shit if it let you change your fate. If life is nothing but an endless race, you bet your ass I'm getting first place. Please somebody get me out of here. Please somebody won't you get me out of here. Oh, you can get me out of here. Yep, that's right. Let your dreams take flight. What's the light on? Let go. Let go. Till it breaks right. Let go. You can feel it up. Feel it up. Feel it up underneath. We'll slide off the fall so nice. You can eat it up. Eat it up. Eat up till you're full of life. It's a goddamn vibe, baby. Fuck it up. Fuck it up. Fuck, 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 fuck. Oh, we can fuck until the sun burns out. We can run for clout. Die upon your hill. I leave a bark from love and goodwill. But when the pain comes calling for my head, yeah, I would rather hurt than be happy and dead. Oh, fuck your frown, baby, spare your grace. Now I'm wearing my crown, perfect framing of my face. All the details surgically replaced. It's a crying shame, a pathetic disgrace. Please somebody get me out of here. Please somebody won't you get me out of here. Oh, I'm not getting out of here. That's right, let your dreams take flight. What's the line go? Let go. Up until it breaks right through you. You can feel it up, feel it up, feel it up underneath. Deep fried with the condition side. You can eat it up, eat it up, eat until you're full of life. Cut the knife, baby, cut it up, cut it up. Fuck it up. Living a life so hollow that I can't even live. Save me, oh, I'm a dead instrument and life is gonna fling me. Come and take the sun. That's all that I run for. Maybe not a single real reason. My blood's already out of season. So I'm not believing by myself. Tell me what the hell, what the hell? I don't like myself. I can't pray to God to fix my soul. But I need God's forgiveness. I need yours. That's right, let your dreams take flight. Faster, let go, until it breaks right through the bone through you. You can feel it up, feel it up, feel it up until the meat shall right into pretty pink slime. You can eat it up, eat it up, eat until you're full of life. Cut yourself up with a knife, baby, cut it up, fuck it all. God, a waking nightmare. I live a life so miserable, it isn't fair. Oh God, the light won't save me, so let the end of the scene watch me going fucking crazy. Come and fuck me till the sun burns out and I run for clout.
I'm crazy.
They say my hunger's a problem. They tell me to cut my appetite. They say I can keep myself from trying a bite of every bait in sight. They wish your patience a virtue. They tell me gluttony is a sin. But my desire is bottomless. I wanna slit your throat and eat till I get sick. The slaughter's on. I'd love to see you come undone and satisfied until I got you played on like some grab a plate. Have a taste, chuck away, don't watch and say I'm still preying on the butcher's bane. To dress you up in pretty patterns. Oh, to dress your flesh up with the works. Perfectly portioned by a dagger, serving the finest leftover dessert. Why would I desecrate a carcass? Oh, why let the offal go to waste? It's love that cosmically grow with such tenderness. A perfect strike, you fix the horror on your face. The slaughter's mine, no platter of serve divine. Bitch, like Watson's eye, tasting Shelley, Linda, I out devour all of you in time. Oh, your heart, chaotic or from art. My love, my knife, to carve it out your life, so grab a plate, have a taste, chuck away, don't watch and say I'm still preying on the butcher's bane. To snap the sinew, I want to get within you. I want to not forgive you, rigor mortis, mold and mildew. But dear, you should be grateful that I won't waste a good meal. That all my love's precision cause a color simply die for. To snap the sinew, I want to get within you. I want to scar the tissue, mortify and beautify you. I need to be your hunter, if you gotta say I'll forget. The slaughter's on, I'd love to see you come undone and satisfied until I got you played on like so grab a plate, have a taste, chuck away, don't watch and say I'm still preying on the butcher's bane. And now the slaughter's mine, my darling, get under the knife. Your broken bride, it cut so perfect in its prime, all that I see. 63, wait on washing, play the knee, I'll be waiting so impatiently. Oh, your heart, chaotic or confront. My love, my knife, to carve it out your life, so grab a plate, have a taste, chuck away, don't watch and say I'm still preying on the butcher's bane. Still preying, hopeless and in vain.
LR stop and dash and up and dot BBABS LR stop and dash and up and dot BBABS LR stop and dash and up and dot BBABS LR stop and dash and up and dot BBABS LR stop and dash One, two, three. Step your feet, such a classic melody. One, two, three. You know the words, so sing along with me. One, two, three. Like the seeds shining through the silver screen. One, two, three. Don't you think physically ought to be? Just another day for you kids away. Love hand in hand with me. Just another day, it's just another day. It's just another day, just another day. One, two, three. What's the nicest thing you see? It's me, the world you know, always running to and fro, a frightful place to be. But don't be scared, I'm not going anywhere. So you just don't touch the dial and stay here a while with me. 1, 2, 3, sing with me. It's a catchy melody. A, B, C, it sounds so sweet when you sing along with me. 4, 5, 6, check the script, keep your harmony in key. Then 9, 8, for the sake of playing Olympic. Just another day for you get away in life, just another day, just another day you keep getting around. Who cares what people say, you see another day, One, two, three. Who's the brightest star you see? It's me. The world you know never seems to take it from a tyrant pace and beat. So don't delay, I'll be here to save the day. Just please don't touch the dial, just stay around with me. Just don't change the channel. I hope you won't be around. After all, I want to be one day. Yes, that's so wrong. Panics, hysterics, athletics, don't you find it romantic? The way this used to be. Classics, aesthetics, it's magic. The truth can be fantastic. Let's keep it next to me. This is how you fit into me. Seems my life. See my feet. The same model for me. See, that's it. I'll let you be. This is how you fit into me. Seems my life. See my feet. The same model for me. See, that's it. I'll let you be. This is how it should be.
So two top brass, money in the stash, double bags full of cash, thinking about the
15 publication line 9, some like server prices, a bunch of like question forms. What happened? I guess I gotta. Sometimes I just wake up in the morning and I look out the window and I just think, oh, I really don't want to be alive right now. Wait, what's that supposed to say?
minute of the day. Buy and sell, the only people calling my phone are the clientele. What the fuck, what Sam? Hell, what the heck? Heard a couple slaps, now he's laying on the deck. I could be the only one left, and you still find me at the bank, cashing the check. It's hard to affect, got big name shareholder. Jot his name down in the corporate affair folder. Make the account and do what I told her. Should you be sending emails to my broker? I told her to focus on what life is about. Just last year, I paid off my house. You're less than a tenth of what's in my account. Evading the tax to preserve the amount. Sometimes I lose count of my paycheck. What I got inside of this IRA, I could triple my worth in a business day. Chapter 7, if you do not do it my way. Listen, man, I say hold on to your assets. If you want in, you're not getting access. Better get moving if I come to collect. I'll tear apart everything you possess, everything in excess. I'd say that it's not. So my boys to go and shoot up your shops. Gonna affect the price of the stock. Don't even bother telling them to stop. Step back, Sylvester. Let me finish. Sit back and watch the investors get skittish. How I make a living is none of your business unless you wanna end up in prison. Make a decision, we can take this to court. Die do this kind of shit for sport. World renowned and I'm known to extort. The court is adjourned before you retort. Knock on your door like I'm knocking a gavel. If there's a service I need, I will travel. If you have what I need, bust your face on the gravel. Cleaned up my act, now I'm back in the saddle. If you don't respect the man, then respect the technique. You say I can trust you, I'm gonna let the check speak. I don't tolerate the I'll pay you next week. Preach a mantra and I'll make your neck leak. Tell me what it is that you seek, brethren. Money comes first, don't lose focus for a second. Women only serve to service your erection, so don't have kids. Always use protection, the path to perfection. Never put a bitch first. A girl's not more than a trap or a curse. Don't believe me, then take a look in her purse. The worst, if you're looking to invest, I'm a big businessman with big business checks. Do the dirty with the cash, what do you expect? That gorilla dick nigga, I make dyke pussy wet. National with transactions, east to the west. I wake up every day, completely wrecked. That's how I pull myself out of the stress. If you see me at my worst and you've seen me at my best, private like my business, so I don't like guess. You wanna know my name, then take a guess, stupid. Spent my days as a kid growing up low class. Spent all Sunday afternoon with that, got a blast all Sunday night with that, gotta go fast. There's real dark dirt piled up in my past. Black as the backwash sitting in the flask. Praying that my kids don't find my secret stash. Mattress on the hotel floor covered in glass. Speaking of glass, find me sipping out the highball. Reel it in if you catch me out the side of your eyeball. You need keys to unlock the bricks in my drywall. Drug runners snap into shape when I call. Who needs cops? Fuck police, don't call them. When my boss is calling up, I try not to stall him. Hello sir, big news, the deal went awesome.
I'll have no disgrace of that kind around him.
Who is this godlike man? Where does he come from? And by what heavenly appointment does he live? All those years in exile, an outcast, complete failure.
Not escaping entirely.
World Corp is turned loose to strike terror into the hearts of men.
Perhaps he sleeps with the fishes.
You won't see me in court, just waiting for my sentence. I don't pray to the Lord. I thank him for forgiveness, man. I done a lot of shit that I really wish I didn't make it in. It's like a burn, man. It's a hard decision with the Lord as my witness. When I'm almost through a living, please give me a minute so I can get my pants in. If you think I'm kidding, you can see it in my eyes, right? Everything is different when you see it in hindsight. Hard to keep your mind right, taking in the dimes, like I could rule the world, but I just think I might throw down the suitcase and fly off the handle. Draw the semi-automatic, put these bitches out like candles. The business world's got its neck deep in scandals. Talk to a woman and you're rich, it's a gamble. On the hands on your wallet, you can touch them. Think I'm even gonna lie to stop making assumptions. Talking to a bitch just so I can touch them. Nah, I don't do that, just start with the suction. Fuck the deduction, lump sum payment. You don't wanna know the reasons that I'm through with fucking hatred. You don't ever wanna see us hopping out onto the pavement. Do you really wanna try us? Come and touch the fucking pictures. Got them praying when they see us like a motherfucking sake of real people wanna kill us. And I'm getting sick of waiting. You ain't got a clue, but you still say we're taking damn no place to stay. We were spending weeks erasing any trace of where we spent the last several days in. walk in the room and I know they all know. And if they don't know, put on a little show. Leave someone close, cold, dead in the snow. Ice cold like a brain freeze when you say, whoa. When you well as this green, you always gotta go. Keep your mind real clean, keep your pockets out the blow. Give a bro a check, pay, rolling out the dough. Everyone I'm with, head down, move slow, huh? Fat cap, watch his weight. All I do is call up, now I hold a fast cake. Big stakes, getting me a house on a lake. All you guys, big fakes, don't make no mistakes. This ain't all I do. Fuck all the critters, there's mother one from man. Check these analytics, there's money's got me turning my back on the missus. Got a high pH, super essay. What is pH mean? Being sad, constantly change where I'm spending all my weekends at. Never get used to where I happen to be sleeping at. Moving so much, been up and down the east and back. No time to chat, gotta keep it moving fast. Flying first class, whole team top brass. Money in the stash, couple bags full of cash. Thinking about the past, broken other glass. Really kidding yourself, you think you give a fuck up. Really kidding yourself, you think I give a fuck up. Forex trader with no clear major, they call him the savior like born in a manger. Hit me on my page, I'll get back to you later. Hand cannon pockmark, face full of craters, well, time to pack up and leave. The bond in Atlanta like a handful of seeds. Got guys on the corner like, man, what you need is all well to me. Don't give a damn about green. He's got a big nose, kike though, like a synagogue. When I read the late night shows, Goldberg, Bernstein, listen here, Shlomo, get your thing. I think it's time for you to go home. Sorry. Run against the plan, sick of the headlines on the papers at the stands. Extra, it's all a big scam. Publish it, nice to make a couple $100 grand. What's a man to do in a world like this? That my whole life's to get burned to a crisp. They open their mouth to regurgitate shit with some coins on my kiss and 45 on my hip. What's a man to do in a world like this? That my whole life's to get burned to a crisp. Open their mouth to regurgitate shit with some coins on my kiss and 45 on my hip. Think I give a shit? You're kidding yourself if you think you give a fuck, huh? You're kidding yourself if you think you give a fuck, bro. Yeah. Reports coming in, reap what you sow, gone haywire, ask the he where we go, and reply we repeat that the feds don't know. Don't you know that those kind of guys won't show? When the man speaks it's like a call of a crow, talk as far as you throw, don't call me your bro, we gave you something to need like dough. Bottom of the barrel, can't stoop to a new low, whoa, don't go there, the blind lead the blind, get back to work, put some grease to the grind, sign of the times to go book left, us behind, fall to your knees and ask the men for a sign. You walk the path in the maze of your own design. Just a bunch of businessmen in their prime with a short fuse quick to put you in a bind. Turn your hotel lobby into Columbine. Okay. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. Or Mr. Moneybag speaks and rattles out like thunder. Accumulates wealth by the pillage and plunder. Evaluates the place where he wakes from his slumber. It really makes you wonder. Watch what you speak by the skin of the earth and the flesh of your teeth. The spirit is willing but the flesh is weak. Don't pay them any mind, they know not what they seek. All that glitters is not gold. All that glitters is useless if not sold. All that glitter can make a man fold. And too much glitter will turn a heart cold. Pause. Pleasure to the mold. All that stuff really is something to behold. Stand down if you wanna act bold. Biggest, baddest wolves with the story untold. The only thing I ask is please don't talk to me. Peek over my shoulder just to see who's stalking me. Talk is cheap, but I gotta relax. One hand on the budget, one hand on the facts. Speaking of facts, I wanna get that rope and swing. Most focus on a thing. We only hire whites, don't let the others stay. I already asked once, just stay the fuck away. And I'm not even dead, but I'm rolling in my grave. You can say all you want, but all I hear is bullshit. Talk about me all you want, but I am not the culprit. Handful of pills and a shot of scotch, I gulp it. Clock's ticking down till I'm dead in the sand. Grow the fuck up and be a fucking man. Damn, where I'm from, that shit doesn't fly. You should be at your job with a suit and tie. And you ask why, to support your fucking family. I'm sleeping in vanity and sheets made of satin. That shit's not enough to keep a man from cracking. What's happening? I'm trying to stay passionate. Blacks in my area, not fucking having it. Right? Stein, nice hat, fruit pack, and I have my job, my money, and my food back. Cough, hack, don't make you say it twice. Speed up the process if you want it to be nice. Do you want to get such, or do you want to make it easy? Just one stab and your name's on the TV. News in the evening, your family will be horrified, so that is why our daddy never came home alive. But I digress. I got a lot of shit to get off my chest. Put a bullet in every raghead Sam, and of course every towelhead a part of the Taliban. Oh man, don't even get me started on the kikes. Gay faggot fruitcake, greasy ass dyke. Yeah, you've been thwarted by the likes of we. Buy 5 products for the price of 3.
Story today. $1 million slabs.
Time to get a little serious.
Celebrity. Say goodbye in this. I'd have to say it would be garbage.
Is that the truth? Is that the truth?
Garbage from King Garbage of the Garbage Dynasty.
Before this shit, I'm getting way too old. Everyone in my way gets left in the cold. Filthy rich, so I burn my cash like coal. This lifestyle starting to take a toll. Crossing off the days till I'm left in a hole. I'm on a roll. If anyone gets hurt, why should I care? You wanna talk equality? Well, life's not fair. There's no such thing as a fair share. You know, it might be a hard pill to swallow. You spend way too much time watching who you follow. Spend a little more, and you might be hollow. See us tomorrow live, worldwide on cable. Unstable, fable, don't let my kid near a dreidel. I got a 4-year-old daughter who is disabled. And I jerk my dick standing over her cradle.
Wyatt, there's an ad coming on.
Here at World Corpo's International Room and Board, we offer advanced room service technology to only the highest payers. We offer super room service, dead babies, abortion, Planned Parenthood. Well, we got you covered, friends. Call 1-800-FUCK-ME-SILLY and call me Grandpa. Anything you need here, we got it. Child prostitution, drugs, just call us up, get in the van, and we'll get you, man. World Corpo's Room and Board.
All states will remember grand liability and person body with the party leading part of including work enterprises. All failures to self-state responsibility of client, the owner of the client, district, suffer, pay, or believe, or remain the owner of the property work enterprises. Any inability to pay will result in client being required to pay off their debt, reasonable liable custodial office. Work enterprises are not responsible for any damage, general saying, even if you want to see.
I fucking hate my wife, man. Drive around with somebody's my pickup truck. Frankly, I'm sick of acting like I give a fuck. Pull up to my house if you wanna try luck. Pills on me low, and the chance of me getting up. I'll be dead before they try to bust a cap on us. Frankly, I'm hanging from the ceiling cause I had enough. I'm just trying to make that news tighten up. To be honest, I don't even care if she gets pregnant from my wife down the stairs. Drink a whole lot and sell all my shares. Drive off a cliff doing 80 through the air. Look in the mirror and I stop and I stare. Lately, I've been losing a lot of hair. I'm just saying that you should be prepared to find me swinging from a rope above a chair like or on the floor of my lair with a bottle of Guinness and the Xanax in my hand cause I'm trying to reduce my lifespan. Hell no, I don't need a fucking hype man cause it's no longer fun to be a white man. Pull a bullet in my kids and my wife there. I'm just talking about a midlife crisis. Might go overseas to join ISIS, or send a bullet flying through my iris, or smoke till I'm coughing like I got bronchitis. I won't stop till my body is lifeless. Until then, I'm gonna be playing with my privates. Download porn title, I get a virus. I have to format all of my devices. Shitty websites make my dick go up like the climate. Watching these kids struggle for help is priceless. Recently I've been feeling like I want to kill every other race on this planet. That's white power, can't you understand it? God hates fags and all ass bandits. That's a result of all these bad habits. Shoot up a mall and cause a panic. Plant some bombs in public transit just to scare everyone who's Hispanic. Get out of my country if you're Spanish. Anyone who isn't white should be banished. What? Recede like my hairline into my basement. I hear my wife wanna find a replacement. Wanna throw myself right onto the pavement. Won't offer an explanation. Just know that my motivation is that I was starting to get impatient. Sick of taking my kids on vacation because I can't stand that whole generation. I hate Americans, that's an understatement. No longer care about my reputation. What? Listen, by now it should be loud and clear that I feel like a fucking shit smear. I've been putting my dick in a fucking Pringles can for the past like 3 years because my wife won't let me fucking anywhere near her anymore. I don't leave my basement very often either. I've been outside like in the past month, like not even for a minute. I don't remember what the outside of my house looks like at this point, you know.
One man's garbage is another man's trash. I can't even drive my car without being smashed. It would be a blessing if I could just crash. Who even gives a fuck? I spent all my cash. Found me in a pool of vomit face down in the grass. Hard for me to keep up with how many minutes passed. Didn't say bye to my kids when I seen them last. Tell the Lord he can take me now if he makes it fast. On a side note, I smile every time I see blood in my piss. Can't wait to die, so leave the blood on my dick. If he has an issue, leave him with blood in his spit. Cause I don't care enough to wash the blood off my fist. My lawyers hunt him down with the cease and desist. Send in the goons if he tries to resist. If he wants to try and fight it, add him to the list. Cause as soon as we step into the court, the case is dismissed. You bet he ain't just leaving with a slap on the wrist. Cause my lawyers work wonders, they know all the tricks. On his way I'll tell him that people like you make me sick. Now he's in debt to me cause he thought he was slick. And the slammer, I hope the guards beat him with a stick. Now I think I should have just caved his skull in with a brick. When he gets out of prison they'll find him dead quick. That's what happens if my corporation catches you slip. That's what happens if my corporation catches you slip. But in the meantime, while he's in jail behind bars, I'll locate his family and find out where they are. Send in the war cocaines to plant a bomb in their car. Even if it doesn't blow, well, they won't get far. The CEO leans back and puffs on a cigar. WCEP and Nick's at Walmart and Escobar. They'll shoot both his kids and leave his wife in the reservoir. When the goons get back, celebrate with class caviar and take him off the list for the harassment seminar. That's what happens if my corporation catches you slip. That's what happens if my corporation
fishing catches you slid.
Oh. The year is 2027.
Yeah, you calling me a bastard, but nah, I'm not the one who's trying to guess my password. Too bad. The bitch who knows it calls me master. If you want,
April 5th, 2015, Easter Sunday. The sun rises over the Nethervon airfield in the UK. A quiet day that would end in terror. Victoria Cilliers, a very experienced skydiver with thousands of jumps, steps onto the waiting plane. She's done this more times than she can count. The roar of engines, the cold rush of the air at altitude, the smell of fuel, all familiar. But today, something happens to Victoria that has never happened to her before. Victoria jumps, plummeting towards the earth. Then, at 3,000 feet, her hand reaches instinctively for the ripcord. She pulls, and this time, nothing happens. She pulls again, nothing. Where a canopy has faithfully exploded out of her pack every time she has pulled that cord, there is now nothing but the vast open sky and the overwhelming sound of the wind whipping past her face. Part of her panics, but she remains calm. She releases her reserve chute, which thankfully tumbles out behind her, but it's tangled. Instead of ballooning open into a chute, it spins above her as she rushes towards the ground at almost 120 miles per hour. Victoria aims for the softest ground she can, a recently plowed field, and attempts to slow her speed any way she can. While the reserve chute slows her some, she still slams into the ground at 60 miles per hour, which should have killed her, but she miraculously survives. An accident like this should almost never happen. The likelihood of both chutes failing is so small that such incidents are practically non-existent. But this was no accident. It was a cold-blooded murder attempt by the one person Victoria should have been able to trust more than anyone else, her husband. Hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the attempted parachute murder. We're going to talk about the absurdity of this murder attempt and, believe it or not, the other murder attempt that led up to it. Apologies for the lack of consistent uploads lately. As you can see, I have moved, so all of my earthly possessions had to go from one place to another, and it's still boring and gray back there, so you just have to stare at my stupid face. I'm sorry. Hopefully the bizarre nature of today's case makes up for it, and if it sounds interesting to you, then stick around after the ad as we get into it. Something that you should always be weary of is debt. Sometimes there's friendly debt, things like car payments or house payments, and then there's the super violent, not at all friendly debt. It goes from one missed bill to a missed phone call, envelopes you don't open, pressure that doesn't let up. Debt doesn't knock, it kicks down the door. Thankfully, today's sponsor, PDS Debt, is here to help you fight back. PDS Debt goes beyond just the numbers and looks at your unique financial situation and crafts a personalized plan designed just for you. There's no minimum credit score required. They're here to help you save more, pay off your debt faster, and start putting money back where it belongs, into your pocket. And I know things like finances can be a touchy subject, especially when you don't know where the company's coming from. But I'm happy to say that PDS Debt is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, boasts thousands of 5-star reviews on Google, and holds a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. Why? Because PDS has helped hundreds of thousands of people get out of debt. Debt can be scary. While thankfully I haven't struggled with it, I've seen friends and family members struggle with it for decades. And if I'd known about it then, I certainly would have recommended PDS Debt, because it's good to have someone experienced in your corner when things aren't looking too good. You're 30 seconds away from being debt-free. Get your free assessment and find the best option for you right now at pdsdebt.com/Wendigang or scan the QR code. Again, pdsdebt.com/Wendigang, pdsdebt.com/Wendigang to get your free assessment today. Thank you all for watching the ad, and thank you to PDS Debt for sponsoring the channel. Their link will be in the description. We are now back to the video. We are going to go ahead and get into it, but as always, thank you for watching. Victoria and Emil Cilliers met in 2009 when Victoria was working as a physiotherapist for the Ministry of Defense, which is the charming British beans and toast way of saying their Defense Department. Emil was a physical trainer and instructor in the Royal Army, who visited Victoria's treatment center after injuring his knee in a skiing accident. As Victoria treated him, they developed chemistry, and after she handed him off to a colleague for treatment, the pair began dating. Emil had moved to the UK from South Africa in the 2000s and had met and married a woman named Carly before, with which he had 2 kids. But that marriage ended in divorce, opening the door for Victoria and Emil. The couple had another 2 children of their own, a 3-year-old daughter and a newborn son at the time of the incident, and lived together in Amesbury, a mere 10 minutes away from the airfield that would come to serve as the location of Victoria's horrific landing. From the outside, their family appeared to have it all. Both parents had established careers in highly respected fields. They had a beautiful home in which they lived with 2 beautiful children, and Victoria and Emil appeared completely in love. But as you probably figured out from the introduction and the title of this video, all was not actually going well behind closed doors. Unbeknownst to Victoria, Emil had been living a double life. By 2014, this life had started catching up to him. He had racked up a massive amount of debt, upwards of 22,000 British pounds. Police would later estimate the real total was much higher than that, saying, quote, he moved money around his many accounts on a daily basis, weaving a web that was almost impossible for financial investigators to unpick. Not only did Emil owe money to colleagues from work and payday lenders, he also owed his wife, who had lent him at least £19,000 over the course of 7 years. As his debts grew, repayment of those debts ate most of his salary from his work with the army, and he had even started quietly taking money from Victoria's bank accounts. So, real stand-up guy. In one instance, Emil privately withdrew £6,000 from her savings, and when she asked him about the missing funds, Emil insisted she had been hacked. But when the bank investigated, they traced the hacker's IP address back to the family's home computer. Which, for one, it's kind of like a juvenile response to be like, oh, maybe you got hacked. But then you follow that lie to the point the bank tracks the IP address, and when it shows up as your computer, are you just like, man, these guys are good? Which I can't really say that much. I lost my Twitter account to a phone call, so we're just going to move on. But the real scandal, and the reason Emil had compiled these debts in the first place, was due to his numerous affairs and what some would describe as a sex addiction. Not only was Emil cheating on Victoria, he had also maintained multiple relationships, including one with his ex-wife, and another with an Austrian skydiver named Stephanie Galler. He met Stephanie on Tinder and began a very committed affair. On top of even this, he spent thousands on prostitutes who he would contact through various sites online. As these encounters strained his bank account, Emil would blame his financial woes on the bureaucracy of the military and problems at work, as well as various clerical errors on the part of financial advisors and banks. Oh, sorry, honey. Looks like the bank took another £10,000. What are you going to do? At one point, while Victoria was pregnant with their second child, Emil was away for New Year's with his girlfriend Stephanie. An officer from a loan company came to their house, scaring and intimidating Victoria, who was alone with her 3-year-old. When she texted Emil about it, he replied, quote, "Why are you worried? They can't do anything." Which that's like scumbag to another level. Your wife is pregnant at home with your other kid, and you are stealing money from her to go on this trip with your affair partner, and when your spending gets her in trouble with a loan company, you're like, women, am I right? What are they so worried about? As impactful as all of his side relationships were, none of his extramarital partners affected Emil as much as Stephanie did, who Emil would text regularly, fantasizing about running away and building a life with her. In his many texts to her, thousands every month, Emil portrayed his marriage to Victoria as a failing partnership that he was victim to, trapped, stuck in a life he was desperate to escape. He even told Stephanie that the child Victoria was pregnant with belonged to another man. Victoria began sensing something was off. His ridiculous excuses made less and less sense anytime she questioned him about his finances. Quote from Victoria, "Cracks were starting to show. I was aware around that time. I had suspicions before that he was having an affair." But Victoria was still very much in love with Emil, and as she felt their marriage slipping away, she felt sad and confused. She sent him texts and emails when he would leave for work trips, which were actually vacations with Stephanie, saying she loved and missed him. Sensing his distance, she even once texted him saying, quote, "I feel like a failure of a wife." She would find various clues to his infidelity, like restaurant receipts for meals, clearly for 2 people, that she hadn't been to. Which, like, you don't have to keep the receipts. You could you can throw those things away. Why would you hold on to them? Like, was he that confident or that stupid he wouldn't get caught? Whenever she would confront Emil about these clues, he would lie, make up an excuse, and they would often fight. Describing that period in their marriage, Victoria said, quote, "I was scared, panicky. Everything seemed to be going massively pear-shaped, and I didn't really understand why. I didn't understand what I had done wrong. It's comedically sad and evil that he's out on these affairs, stealing money from her, and she's like, I feel like a failure of a wife and other tragic things. And he's bringing home receipts from dinner, apparently. As Victoria's trust began to erode, so did her sense of safety. In 2014, she reworked the contents of her will, quietly removing Emil and making her children the beneficiaries should anything happen to her. At the same time, Emil was making moves of his own, adding Victoria to his life insurance policy and maximizing her coverage up to £120,000. This, he believed, would solve both his problems, a marriage he was unhappy with and the financial strain he was under, allowing him to start a new life with Stephanie. In texts recovered by police, Emil told Stephanie that Victoria, quote, wouldn't be around much longer, which Stephanie later said she believed was a figurative statement, only realizing what he meant once everything came out. Yes, I'm sure that the woman that knowingly had an affair with a husband and father of 2, 4 counting his previous marriage, certainly didn't think anything nefarious was up. Okay, it's like when El Chapo's wife was questioned by the police and said she had no idea that her husband was in the cartel and never even heard about drugs or anything like that. Normally that level of loyalty would be cool, but we're talking about affairs. There's no room for loyalty here. One early morning in 2015, a week before Victoria's fateful skydiving tumble, Emil carried out what would be his first attempt on her life. Victoria woke up to the overwhelming smell of gas coming from her kitchen. Emil wasn't home. He had spent the night with his ex-wife while also texting his girlfriend Stephanie and also contacting prostitutes. He had told the family he was sleeping at his barracks to avoid early morning traffic. On smelling the gas, Victoria investigated the gas valve in the kitchen and found it had been tampered with. There was also fresh blood on the valve, making it clear someone had intentionally messed with it and seemingly cut their hand in the process. She texted her husband about it, asking, quote, "Are you trying to bump me off?" She intended it as a joke, whereas we know now it was tragically accurate. Perhaps something in the back of her mind knew it was no laughing matter. The same thing in the back of her mind that made her change her will. Emil admonished her for even daring to suggest such a thing, but forensic analysis would later determine that it was his blood. Keep in mind that not only was Victoria sleeping upstairs, so were Emil's 2 children, aged 3 years old and 1 month old. Which, yeah, his wife had just given birth in the midst of all these affairs. So not only was he willing to kill his wife, he was willing to kill his 2 children if it meant he got to be with the woman he wanted to be with, and all the additional women he wanted to be with. He was determined to take her out any way he could, with zero regard for the collateral damage it might require. Having failed in his first attempt, Emil began plotting a second, more elaborate plan to dispatch of his wife. This time, he would use his background knowledge of parachutes to sabotage them, ensuring Victoria would plummet helplessly towards the earth to an almost certain death. Emil was a certified parachute packer, having obtained credentials in 2010 after meeting Victoria and being introduced to her passion for skydiving. He knew the ins and outs of the packing process and therefore knew exactly where and how to rig them so they would fail. Over Easter weekend, Emil booked a skydiving trip for him and his wife, telling her it was a special treat to celebrate the birth of their second child. It would be her first jump in over a year, and having become so desperate for any sign that their marriage still had hope, she was thrilled that Emil finally seemed interested, not just in her, but in doing something together. So, on the day before Easter Sunday, 2015, the whole family traveled to the Nathuravon airfield. When they arrived, Emil offered to grab a chute for her from the kit store. Then, stating their young daughter needed to use the restroom, disappeared into the bathroom with his 3-year-old and the parachute. It was a weird choice, bringing the giant pack into such a tiny bathroom when everyone left their kits in the hangar. Later, Emil would say that he didn't want to leave it unattended where strangers could access it. Because yes, that would be bad if a stranger got your wife's parachute, and certainly not you, right? While in the stall, Emil knotted her main canopy and removed key pieces from the reserve chute called slinks. He did all of this in just a few minutes. He then repacked the reserve, either using a special metal packing tool or something as simple as a kitchen utensil like a fork or spoon. He then stepped back out into the hangar with the pack, ready to watch his wife fall to her death. But there was an issue. The weather conditions were unfavorable, preventing any jumps from happening that afternoon. They would have to go home and return the next day on Easter. Rather than return the kit to the store like everyone else, Emil insisted that Victoria store the kit in her locker to save time the following morning when she came back. which doesn't make any sense because everyone else you're doing the jump with has to go to the kit store anyway. She felt uneasy about it, leaving her parachute out where anyone could access it, but she was so eager to maintain the happy, positive rapport she seemed to finally be building with her husband that she went along with his insistence. She didn't want to fight. The next day, Victoria returned to the airfield, this time with Emil staying home with the kids. While this had now gone from them doing something together to her doing something on her own, she was still overjoyed. Finally, the man she loved was doing things for her, putting her first, offering to watch the children so she could do something she loved. When conditions once again proved to be unfavorable, he encouraged her to stay at the airfield till things cleared up. Something that always strikes me with cases like this is the little evils that have to occur. Like, of course, the big evils deserve the majority of the attention, like him willing to kill his children in a house explosion. But just realizing how constant this plan had to be in his mind, that his wife was like, maybe I'll come home to you and the kids, and he keeps texting, no, stay there, go on the jump, knowing it will result in her death. With the clouds hanging low over the ground, the restless crew finally received the green light to do a hop and pop, or a low altitude jump where divers would deploy their parachutes shortly after leaving the plane. Victoria pulled the kid on her back and excitedly boarded the plane with the other 11 jumpers. Witnesses described her as happy, saying she fist bumped all the other divers as they began their ascent up to around 4,000 feet. Victoria was the last out of the plane. After about 3 seconds of free fall, she pulled the cord. She immediately realized something was off. The last thing she remembered was trying to deploy the reserve. Onlookers watched helplessly as Victoria tumbled towards the ground, saying she looked like a rag doll when she made impact, landing on her right side and blacking out. Airfield personnel were so certain that she had died that as they rushed to her side, they brought a body bag with them. And in their defense, there's only a handful of people that have fallen from 4,000 feet and survived. She had fractured her pelvis in multiple places, cracked several ribs, and broke her spine, but she was somehow, miraculously, alive. But one person this was no miracle for was Emil. While incredibly rare, his perfect plan had somehow failed. While an attempt like this is incredibly rare, it's not entirely unheard of. In 2003, a 20-year-old officer cadet named Stephen Hidler had fallen 13,000 feet to his death in Lincolnshire following a July 4th skydive. His main and reserve chute both failed. The risers on Hidler's reserves were cut, leading police to suspect foul play. But after a 10-month-long investigation, they concluded that it was a suicide, and that Hidler had cut his own chutes in order to make it appear as an accident. This would later be challenged by many within the community, who pointed out that if you were going to kill yourself, you wouldn't likely attempt to pull both your main and reserve chutes and save your life. You could just not do anything. But if you go to the police's theory and say, oh, well, maybe he cut his own chutes so people wouldn't think he did it to himself, then that still doesn't make any sense, because they're going to investigate and see that the chute's cut and think that you did it to yourself. Despite the controversy, that didn't stop Emil from referencing this very incident in court, suggesting Victoria had intended to take her own life instead. This guy is a true specimen. Cheats on his wife, tries to kill her and the kids, fails at killing her but severely injures her, and then says, everyone, maybe this is what she wants. Maybe we should respect her wishes. Also, because I guess this is on the table now, if I was to hypothetically, potentially maybe make videos that were negative to corporations like Disney or Nintendo or Fiji Water or government agencies or the Yakuza, and if I ever go skydiving and my lines are cut, I didn't do it myself. Add that one to the list. I'm also just never skydiving. If I'm ever found in a plane that I'm supposed to fall out of, be suspicious. Experts on the ground who responded to Victoria's fall were dumbfounded. This sort of thing just didn't happen. When they inspected the equipment, they noticed multiple things didn't look right. Mark Bayada, the chief instructor at the Army Parachute Association, which runs Nathuravon, said the following, quote, all the lines on one side of the parachute were knotted up. When we lifted her onto the stretcher to put her into the helicopter, one of the paramedics asked if someone could look underneath to make sure no lines were still attached. That's the first time I looked at the equipment properly, and I could see the two ends of the risers on the reserve chute were unattached. Bayada started to look further into the kit, searching for signs of defect, loose stitching, residue, burn marks, bunching of the straps that would indicate they had been under pressure. But there was nothing to indicate a mechanical failure, and it had been inspected 16 times by 10 different packers over the life of the pack, including as recently as 2 months prior. Believe it or not, people that jump out of planes for a living are pretty particular about how the chutes are packed. Every time, the inspectors had noted that the slinks, which now were not in their proper place, were in fact there. And this was the first time the reserve had ever been deployed. Suspecting tampering, Bayada called the police to report what he saw. Officers went to see Victoria at the hospital, while others inspected the parachute for themselves. They didn't think they would find much beyond a tragic mechanical failure, but the more they looked into the case, the more their suspicions grew. The inspection confirmed what Bayada had suggested. The kit had almost certainly been tampered with, and when police received a very concerning call from one of Victoria's friends, they knew Emil was their prime suspect. Victoria's friend called and told the police that the relationship between Emil and Victoria was abusive, with the latter trapped in a coercive relationship with Emil. Quote, "There were domestic abuse issues within the relationship that weren't obvious from the outside. We're not talking about black eyes and bruises, we're talking about the unseen stuff." So Wiltshire police immediately began constructing a timeline of events. The day before Easter, Emil had shadowed Victoria to the kit store, rented the rig, and escaped into the restrooms to begin his work. Although the bathroom stall was cramped and would have, according to Bayada, been very difficult to work in, Emil's knowledge and Packer certification made it plausible he would have been able to pull it off. Typically, these chutes are pretty big, so you need a lot of space to work on them, but if you knew what you were doing, it was possible. However, given he would only have had a few minutes to tamper with Victoria's pack, police needed to confirm it was even possible, not just with limited space, but with the limited time. So, Bayada got to work. Taking two different parachutes, a 149 square foot kit like the one Victoria had, and a larger 170 foot chute as an extra data point, Mark entered into the same bathroom stalls Emil had used. He was able to replicate the sabotage in 5 minutes and 5 seconds and 5 minutes and 15 seconds respectively. Replicating the damage, Bayada put the removed reserve slinks in his pocket and concluded that, quote, "The tampering carried out would not be noticed in a pre-jump flight line visual check." This Bayada guy is awesome. The police are like, would it even be possible for a parachute specialist to damage this parachute in that bathroom? And Bayada's like, give me the parachute. On top of that, the police examined the gas leak from the week before. As mentioned, they found the blood and were able to trace it to Emil. Using forensics, they also determined that he had used a universal wrench and an adjustable pair of pliers to open the top nut on the gas valve in the area next to the gas oven. This was enough to arrest Emil in his barracks on April 28, 2015. At the time of his arrest, he apparently had no reaction or objection to being told he was being detained under suspicion of attempted murder. He didn't even ask for a lawyer. Emil sat through almost 6 hours of interrogation without any kind of legal representation. Which, regardless if you did it or not, you would think people would always ask for a lawyer. This actually reminds me of a guy that tragically did kill his wife and kids to be with an affair partner, Chris Watts. Chris Watts sat through hours of interrogation. He was so confident that he was like, give me a lie detector, and then he failed the lie detector, and he was like, oh, which I guess good for us that they're always stupid, but it's like, how are you that stupid? In the initial interrogation, Emil admitted to his affair with Stephanie and trouble with finances, as well as the fact that he had gone into the restroom for some time on that Saturday afternoon. Quote from the detectives, he offered up both a motive and a means of murder, as if he were untouchable. He assumed we were going to accept what he was saying, and that he'd never see us again. When asked if he had anything else to say, Emil told the detectives, quote, "The worst part about today was that you arrested me in front of my subordinates."
No, Emil. The worst part about today is that you're going to jail for murder.
Well, attempted, but you get it. By the time the trial was finally underway, investigators had combed through tens of thousands of pages of data. Forensic teams went through his phones and computers. Interestingly, Victoria, who you might assume would have been extremely helpful to the prosecution in building a case against Emil, initially refused to cooperate. She would defend her husband, cover for his whereabouts, and retracted previously potentially incriminating statements against him. And while this may sound frustrating, this is pretty standard of people in abusive relationships. They feel the need to cover for their abuser. Displaying symptoms typical of a victim of domestic abuse, Victoria even stated that she herself may have damaged the chute. When retracting her previous statement, she said, quote, "I made it sound worse than it was because I was humiliated. I wanted him to suffer." Mark Bayada testified for the prosecution, stating that the parachute kit was in fact tampered with. He said that to untie the knots about the sliders would have required opening the reserve container on purpose and meticulously putting everything back together in its pack. This testimony would prove essential, as without it, Emil's work could have easily been dismissed by the court as an accident, with little proof to say otherwise. Regardless, the case wasn't a sure shot because Victoria was still defending her husband's character. A conviction seemed unlikely unless the prosecution could prove, for one, Emil's mental state, as well as the state he had put Victoria in. The trial began in September of 2016, and Emil was charged with multiple counts of attempted murder, as well as reckless endangerment. No friends or family showed up to court to support Emil, which also meant that the defense had no character witnesses to counter the prosecution's claims. Not even his colleagues in the army would comment on him. Proving Emil to be of highly questionable moral character would not be especially difficult. In the words of one of the detectives on the case, Emil displayed all the traits of a psychopath: sociopath, narcissist, extreme selfishness. He only cares about himself. The prosecution laid out Emil's numerous infidelities and callous behavior. This included the revelation that he was sleeping with his ex-wife, Carly Cilliers, while soliciting prostitutes for unprotected sex for £100 and asking to film it. He had used borrowed money, including that from his wife, to fund the extravagant trips and vacations with his mistress, Stephanie, and had even texted her while at Victoria's bedside as she recovered. In one of these messages, while referring to Victoria's injuries, Emil told Stephanie, quote, "I can't imagine anything like that happening to you. All I can think about is you." So he tries to kill his wife and kids. That didn't work. He almost kills his wife, and then suggests maybe she did it, and then while next to her, and the facade still going that he cares about her, he's texting his affair partner saying, "Man, I would be so sad if what happened to the mother of my children happened to you. We gotta kill this guy. There's no way our world is enriched or made better if he's still breathing. And we gotta get rid of him." The judge needs to have a button under his desk that just foregoes the trial. He can only use it like once or twice in his career. But if someone is just that far gone, he can just press it and the person in the defendant chair just falls into a pit of crocodiles. I think that would be the best result here. I mean, the crocodiles would be happy. When Emil first showed up at the hospital, Victoria said he didn't offer any sympathy or his support. Instead, he produced forms for a doctor to sign regarding her injuries in order for Emil to recoup costs from insurance. Victoria told police at the time, quote, "He didn't even say he loved me. He was there counting up my fractures. You get £1,000 for each break, and he was there adding them up." Once again, crocodile pit. A lecturer in psychopathy who was at the trial watching the case agreed with Detective Franklin regarding Emil's signs of psychopathy. His interest in risky sports, his complete lack of remorse for his infidelity, his excessive spending, his womanizing, and his inability to empathize are all on the prescribed list of psychopathic behavior. If the gas didn't work and the parachute didn't work, he would have had another go and another go until it was successful. The prosecution noted, quote, "Emil wanted to be rid of Victoria and wanted to live his life on his own terms. He cared nothing for her and in truth cared only for himself. He had decided to get rid of her permanently. This is a man who cared absolutely nothing for her and treated her with absolute contempt." During deliberations, the jury became deadlocked when two jurors both had to be excused due to illness stemming from the stresses of the court case. As this placed the jury below the legally required threshold, a mistrial was called, and a retrial happened soon afterwards. This time they came to a verdict only 30 hours after the deliberations began. And what was that verdict? Thankfully, guilty on all counts. 2 accounts of attempted murder and 1 for reckless endangerment. 1 count of attempted murder against Victoria through the gas leak, and then the reckless endangerment was his 2 children in the same gas leak, and then the other attempted murder was of course the parachute incident. The judge, Justice Sweeney, had this to say about Emil's character, a key component in his sentencing. Quote, "You are reckless and single-minded with significant deficits in thinking and behavior. You are an expert in manipulation, plainly capable of planning someone's murder without a flicker of conscience. You pose a high risk of danger to others." Which, yeah, that sums it up. These counts carried with them a sentence to life in prison. Emil apparently did not react or show any emotion while the sentence was being read. Victoria Cilliers continued advocating for her husband. During the reading of the victim impact statements, which usually helps the judge reach an appropriate sentence on behalf of the victims, Victoria asked hers not to be read out loud. The general understanding was that she wanted to appeal for a more lenient sentence for Emil, and didn't want to do anything to make it likelier he ended up behind bars. Which, once again, typical of victims of abuse. Judge Sweeney said this about Victoria. Quote, That your wife recovered it all was miraculous. She undoubtedly suffered severe physical harm, and she must have suffered psychological harm in the terror of the fall and since. She appears to have recovered from the physical harm, but not, having seen her in the witness box at length, from the psychological harm. Man, this Judge Sweeney just hits the nail right on the head. I bet he would like my crocodile pit idea. And he was right. Victoria, no doubt a victim of severe emotional abuse and manipulation, did not want to accept what Emil had done to her. Long after the trial was over, she admitted that she could not see him as a killer. Quote from her, "I have to go, I suppose, with the verdict. It's almost like peer pressure to conform. My family, friends, everyone seems to think they know more than I do. They see different evidence to me. He'd been unfaithful. He'd had issues with money. But that is not attempted murder. Yes, I'm hurt and angry, but can I see him as capable of murder? No." She would later describe Emil as a passionate, intense alpha male soldier and a sex addict. Victoria, for a while, would visit Emil in prison, where he continued denying that he had done anything wrong and that both the parachute and gas leak were unfortunate incidents, not attempted murder. He downplayed the affairs and tried to get back together with Victoria, but history didn't lie. Emil had gone back and forth on how he felt about the various women in his life constantly. The reason his first marriage and those 2 children haven't come up in the story is because he totally abandoned them. His first wife, who was a teenager that he got pregnant when he was living in South Africa, was useless to him until he began an affair with her years later after he was married to Victoria. In his first interview with police, he shed tears about how this incident with Victoria might negatively impact his relationship with Stephanie, who he described as the love of my life. In the second interview, his time with Stephanie was described as just an affair, in his own words. By the third, when police questioned Emil about him crying during that first interview, he insisted that he cried because he was worried about Victoria. And then they pointed out that it was Stephanie specifically that he claimed he was sad about. By the time it got to trial, he testified that he was just stringing Stephanie along. It's very apparent that Emil would have said anything to anyone at any time as long as it worked to benefit himself in some way. He insisted to Stephanie until the end that the second child Victoria had birthed had belonged to another. Emil claimed he even had DNA proof of such. He was a liar, a manipulator, and a killer. Or, attempted killer. All of the lies and deception may have finally truly caught up to him though. Stephanie Goller stopped communicating with him, and eventually during a phone call with Emil, Victoria asked him for a divorce. By 2024, she had remarried, and seems that she was finally free from the cycle Emil had happily trapped her in for over a decade. Victoria met a fellow skydiver who she built a house with in pursuit of a quiet and fulfilled life. She has continued her work as a physiotherapist for the Ministry of Defense, although I'm not sure if she's going to be able to bring herself to jump out of a plane again. It would be impossible to blame her if she couldn't. As for Emil, thankfully, he continues to rot behind bars. But even from his cell, he's attempting to retain some form of control over Victoria. Another important aspect of Richard Russell's life is that he was a devout Christian. So with a lot more free time in Oregon because he's no longer playing football, Richard decides to take a leadership role in various ministries. He was a big leader in his local Young Life group. Young Life is an organization that primarily works with high school or college age students, and various other organizations like Campus Crusade for Christ. As a matter of fact, it was at one of these Campus Crusade meetings that Richard would meet Hannah, his future wife. It turns out the two of them had an interest in cooking, so while in Oregon, they opened their own restaurant called Hannah Marie's Artesian Breads. However, according to most interviews and people who just knew the family, it seems that Hannah was getting homesick and wanted to live closer to her family. So in 2015, the two of them sold the business and eventually began living in Sumner, Washington. Once there, Richard got his job with Horizon Air and even transferred to Washington State, where he graduated in 2017 with his bachelor's degree in social studies. It was actually during his time in college that he had to make various blog posts and videos of himself for assignments. And it's from some of these blog posts and videos that we learn more about him. For example, the fact that he's not exactly thrilled with his job. And while he thinks planes are really cool, he hates the mundane nature of his current profession. However, one of the perks of the job, at least according to him, was free travel and getting to see his family back in Alaska whenever he wanted. So why was this guy, who by all outside accounts was living a perfectly normal, happy, married lifestyle, now in the cockpit of a stolen passenger plane. Well, what would become apparent in the eventual interviews and investigation, as well as the recording between air traffic control and Richard himself, is that Richard wasn't in the best state of mind. Again, this will become apparent with some of the sections of the tape recording that you're going to hear in a bit. But from the now released FBI reports, it seems that those around Richard had some sign that something was about to go wrong right before it did. Now, according to everyone who the FBI interviewed around Richard, as well as various, journal articles and news sources, everyone said that Richard was an incredibly kind guy, if a little quiet, but once you got him talking, he wouldn't stop, and he wanted to be best friends with everyone. So his coworkers began to notice a couple weeks before August the 10th that he seemed uncharacteristically down. A lot of sections from the FBI report are redacted just because they probably mention individuals' names or addresses or phone numbers or what have you. But from the sections that we can see, we see that on August the 3rd, he mentioned to a coworker that he felt he wasn't living up to what others thought of him. And then only a couple of days later, his family held an intervention for something. Again, the specifics have been redacted. We could speculate if it was perhaps depression. Maybe he mentioned he was going to harm himself. Maybe it was something drug or substance related. I don't really feel like taking guesses as to what the man's mental health was, but we can assume from what we have. After this intervention, the family noted that he seemed to be doing better, although he was also seeming to drink in excess. And then it would only be 5 days after this intervention that the hijacking would occur. Now, while this may lead you to believe that perhaps it was some short notice, spur of the moment thing that caused the hijacking to occur, there were signs of some kind of suspicious activity at least a year in advance. Because on at least 2 occasions within the previous year, Richard had gotten in trouble, and by in trouble I mean told to leave, because he and another employee were standing in a cockpit when they weren't supposed to be, and quote, flipping and pointing at switches. Now, of course, you could chalk this up to just general interest with planes, but given where it went, it's understandable why that activity seems suspicious in hindsight. Now, there's also another important question to ask. Richard's entire job was to just do ground maintenance for planes. Sure, he knew how to taxi them around, but that was with the assistance of an air tug and another person. So how did this guy learn how to take off and fly a plane on his own? Well, I don't think I have to tell you, in the modern age of the internet, it's not hard to look up a user manual for a kind of plane, or even a flight simulator for that specific model. Out of all of Richard's coworkers that were interviewed, none of them said that they knew of him having a flight sim, but that each of them individually knew it was pretty easy to get a flight sim. Also, the FBI raided and investigated his house after this, and even though they don't mention that they found like a flight sim on his computer or anything, I don't know how well they investigated, so he almost certainly had something. I mention that to say I don't think this was a short notice thing. It takes a long time to learn how to effectively fly a passenger plane. And while a lot of people point to the intervention and the mention a week prior that he felt he wasn't living up to expectations as being maybe a fight he got into or some short notice thing that led to this, I think that the events of August the 10th were coming for a very long time. One theory posed by the Rolling Stones article that I mentioned earlier through interviews of people who were friends with Richard is that due to various concussions and head trauma that Richard received while playing football, perhaps CTE was a part of the issue. Or basically the idea that, for those of you who may not know, chronic long-term head trauma can lead to things like increased aggression, instability, increased risk-taking decisions, etc. And while I don't think that was entirely what was at play here, I would certainly be willing to believe that it was a factor. One more thing I want to mention from this Rolling Stones article, which the article itself is great. Tim Dickinson did a fantastic job at compiling it. However, there's this one part that's really funny, and I understand that internet culture is very weird and hard to understand from the outside looking in, but that being said, I have to read this paragraph. So this is during a point in the article where it's discussing potential warning signs or clues people may have been able to see if Richard left any hints as to what he's about to do. And it closes with, Russell also kept a Pinterest profile where he went by the handle Bbro and collected memes, including several from the satirical site Despair.com. In July of 2018, days before his unauthorized departure, Russell pinned an image to a board called Dank Memes. It was a Photoshop of a chubby kid with brown hair dressed up as Sonic the Hedgehog with a sad, distant look in his eyes. It's not a spitting image, but it's hard to not see Russell in the child's face. No matter how fast I run,